There has been a number of matches that involve a cage surrounding the ring in professional wrestling. The Hell in the Cell, the War Games and the Elimination Chamber are key examples of this. There has been other variations of cage-style matches throughout time, with some that only took place once or maybe a handful of times. One of those in particular would make more than one appearance despite it not being well received, and that match in question is the Punjabi Prison, a match type that was mainly focused around the Great Khali. On paper, the match sounded intriguing, but once it became a reality, there was more negative reactions towards the match than acclaim. We will go through all the Punjabi Prison matches the WWE has given us in this video to see how the bouts played out and also see if they weren't as bad as some have said. The Punjabi Prison's concept came to light in 2006 and was put together for the Great Khali's feud with The Undertaker. After Khali defeated the Phenom at the Judgment Day pay-per-view, their rivalry would continue on to the Great American Bash. On an episode of SmackDown following Judgment Day, Daivari, the Great Khali's manager, announced that Khali would challenge The Undertaker to another match at the Great American Bash pay-per-view, and this match was to be contested in a Punjabi Prison match. There were no specific details given to the fans on how the match would work out, so we all had to wait and see. A former writer for WWE called Court Bauer was one of the key figures who came up with the concept of the Punjabi Prison match. In an interview with GameSpot's WrestleBuddies podcast, Bauer stated that he got the inspiration for the match when he came across exploding cage death matches that were held in Japan. Court Bauer also stated on the podcast about the Punjabi Prison, "We start seeing the mock-ups for what the exploding cage was going to look like. First of all, there was no explosions. This was about 10 days before the pay-per-view, and the second thing we learned was it's bamboo, and it's almost like an Indiana Jones playset from Temple of Doom. And you're like, this is so perversely not what we talked about. Oh my god, this is going to bury the creative team once again." Of course, we took the heat for that one, but it's interesting how you take risks, and sometimes in different systems, it either turbocharges the idea or it mutates into a Punjabi Prison match. Another former WWE writer by the name of Alex Greenfield was the one who came up with the name for the Punjabi Prison match. He also stated that the finished structure ended up looking different than what they originally had in mind for a design, but they had to use it as they already had spent a lot on constructing the structure. Alex Greenfield first showed The Undertaker details of the Punjabi Prison match, and according to Greenfield, Undertaker was not enthusiastic about the match to begin with. Alex Greenfield also stated about the dead man's reaction to the match and claimed that Taker just went, "Huh?" and walked away. So by all indications, the match was already getting poorly received even before the fans themselves could bear witness the thing. Before we begin our look, we're just going to go over the rules of the Punjabi Prison match. The match consists of two structures made of bamboo. The interior cage around the ring has 4 doors that are attended by the referees. A door will open when called for by a competitor, and that door would stay open for 60 seconds, and then that door would get locked for good once the timer runs out. The outside structure doesn't have any doors, so climbing up it and out is the only way. So therefore, to win the match, a competitor has to escape both structures. Just one more thing, interestingly, this match in some capacity does seem to share some similarities to that of the Kennel from Hell match from the 1999 Unforgiven pay-per-view between Al Snow and the Big Boss Man. That match consisted of the Hell in a Cell structure with the blue steel cage surrounding the ring, and there would be guard dogs surrounding the ring between the structures, and you also had to escape both those structures to win the match. And funnily enough, this match was also poorly received by fans and critics alike. Time now to look over each of the Punjabi Prison matches, starting of course with The Undertaker vs Big Show bout at the 2006 Great American Bash. Prior to the match, Undertaker confronted the Great Khali backstage, and out of nowhere, ECW champion The Big Show attacked the Dead Man, and shortly after that, the two big men and Daivari were heading towards the ring. They get stopped by SmackDown General Manager Teddy Long. Teddy Long then criticises Daivari for having Big Show attack The Undertaker. He then says that in the Punjabi Prison match, there was only going to be one man who was going to face The Undertaker, as Teddy looks at the Great Khali. But Teddy Long then turns and then looks at the Big Show and says he will be competing instead. Big Show tries to protest the decision, but Teddy Long will not comply. Big Show then heads to the ring while both Daivari and Khali continue to protest. And just quickly, the reason why the Great Khali did not compete was because he didn't get medically cleared to wrestle, as he was suffering from elevated enzymes, and coincidentally Khali was not the only one who had the same issue going into the pay-per-view. Out in the arena, the Punjabi Prison structures have lowered, with yellow lights shining all over it. After Michael Cole goes over the rules, Big Show first heads to the ring and he has a look of possibly terror and concern on his face. Once in the ring, Show continues to observe the structure that surrounds him, and already from the outside cameras and exterior long shots, it's clear that those in attendance may find it difficult to see the entire action inside the ring. The Undertaker then heads down towards the structure, and once the outer one lowers, the Phenom enters the ring, and once through the door, Big Show attacks Taker with clubbing blows as the match gets going. The Phenom mounts a comeback with fists flying. The two then go back and forth on getting the advantage over one another. We then see Undertaker for some reason climb up the cage to maybe escape over the top, even though none of the doors have been opened yet. Big Show of course catches him and nails some headbutts. Once down, Undertaker gets a boot to the face, and a short while later Undertaker calls for a door to be opened and the 60-second timer commences. Big Show puts Undertaker's chances to escape to a halt, and neither man manages to get out the door, so when the timer runs out, the door shuts and that's locked for good. After countering Old School, Big Show then calls for another door to open, and again neither man get out in time and it's bye bye to that door. Show then removes a turnbuckle cover and rams Taker's head into it, and the dead man starts to bleed. Soon afterwards, Big Show then ends up getting busted open too. Following a superplex, the Phenom asks for the next door to open, and immediately he's out of there as the fans cheer. Taker then observes the outer structure that he will need to climb up to escape. Big Show runs out of time and the door gets locked with Show still inside. The big man then calls for the final door to open and he's finally out, just as Undertaker begins to climb the outer cage. Show puts the brakes on Taker's ascent up the cage, and once down, he leans a table on the cage and tosses the dead man through it. Show then throws Undertaker back into the ring just as the timer for the door runs out, and so Taker is stuck inside the ring with all the doors now locked, whilst Big Show looks on with a sort of pleased with himself look on his face. He then begins to climb the outer cage as Undertaker climbs up the inside cage and steps over to stop the big man from escaping. The Phenom holds on to a rope as he kicks the Giant back down to the floor. Once back down, Taker does a leg drop to Big Show through a table. Undertaker rams Show's head into the inside cage just as Daivari and the Great Khali head towards the cage. The ending of the match then happens, and it ends in quite a bad and strange way. Undertaker climbs up the inside cage and he performs a diving crossbody on the Big Show, and the cage walls suddenly open and both men end up outside on the floor. Undertaker is declared the winner as Khali and Daivari watch on from up on the cage, but I believe most fans in attendance were confused about the outcome. This match was no doubt bad, a combination of a clearly botched ending and an advertised Great Khali not competing in the match, though that wasn't Khali's fault, so we can't be too harsh on that fact. As they say in life, you only get one chance to make a good first impression, and I'm sorry, that wasn't the case for the first ever Punjabi Prison match, but keep in mind, the 2006 Great American Bash was plagued with misfortunes and last minute changes throughout. The next Punjabi Prison match would take place at No Mercy in 2007. At Unforgiven the month prior, the Great Khali lost the World Heavyweight Championship to Batista in a triple threat match which also included Rey Mysterio. Khali requested his title rematch for No Mercy, and it would take place inside the Punjabi prison. After the poor reception of the first one, maybe WWE wanted to give the match another chance and see if it did better this time around. And this time the Great Khali did indeed get to take part in the match this time. So let's check this one out. The match starts with Khali landing fists on Batista, followed by a clothesline. Batista then shoulder tackles Khali and he gets tied up in the ring ropes, and Big Dave throws punches on Khali. After escaping the ropes, the Great Khali lands a chop on Dave and then asks for the first door to be opened. Batista stops the big guy from getting out the door, which then gets locked. Khali then chokes Batista with his boot in the corner, and in the centre of the ring, the animal gets a big boot. Khali's momentum gets stopped soon after Batista nails a spear. Dave then asks for another door to open, and again no escape takes place, so that's 2 doors already gone. Great Khali grabs a leather strap and begins to whip the animal several times over. Whilst using the strap, Khali then asks for the next door to open. Batista hits a spinebuster on the giant and crawls to the door, but Khali grabs his leg and again no escaping takes place. Batista retaliates by using the leather strap on the big man over and over. Batista decides to risk escaping over the top despite there being 1 door left to open. The Great Khali then stops Dave and then lands more punches. Batista tries to go for a Batista bomb, but he gets stopped with even more punches to the head. Khali then applies the vice grip, and then he asks for the final door to open, and almost immediately Batista nails a low blow. Batista manages to get his head past the door just as Khali grabs the door and drops it on the animal and continuously rams it on top of Dave over and over. After pulling him back in, the door gets locked, and that's all of them locked, which means both Batista and Khali will have to climb over the top to escape. Great Khali, I think, then asks for the referee to unlock the door, and when the referee says no, Khali gets a hold of him and then drops him to the floor. Khali begins to climb, but Batista manages to get him down, but then Big Dave gets pulled down to the mat and Khali slowly manages to escape down to the floor. As the Great Khali starts to climb up the outer structure, Batista starts to make his way out the inside cage, and when he gets to the top, Khali has managed to get to the top as well. We get this spot here where Batista jumps from the top of the inside cage to the outer cage. Following this, both men begin climbing down and Batista makes it down first, and the animal wins the match and thus retains the World Heavyweight Championship. This Punjabi prison was a bit better than the first bout, though it would have been good to have one of the competitors escape through the door and also have the 2 brawl on the outside before climbing up the outer structure. But other than that, this one was a little better, but still not overly good. We now come to 2017 for the 3rd and currently latest Punjabi prison match to date. The story heading into this match was, at Backlash, Jinder Mahal would win the WWE Championship from Randy Orton. The 2 clashed in a rematch at Money in the Bank, where Mahal again retained thanks to interference from his associates, the Singh brothers. On an episode of SmackDown, Shane McMahon granted Randy Orton another shot at the WWE Championship, though he allowed Jinder Mahal to choose the stipulation for the match at the Battleground pay-per-view. Mahal of course chose the Punjabi prison match, so a match with 2 structures would surely be able to stop any interference from the Singh brothers from happening in the bout. Let's find out. The Punjabi prison match main evented the Battleground pay-per-view. After the announcements are made, Orton immediately goes to work on Mahal with fists in the corner, but Mahal stops him with a shoulder tackle. He then asks for a door to open, and right away the first attempt at escape takes place. Both men stop one another from getting out the door several times and nothing changes, so there goes the first door. Mahal goes to work on Randy's arm and dominates the match for a while whilst targeting the arm. Mahal then calls for another door to open and Randy does a throwaway slam on Jinder, and yet again neither man gets out the door on time. Randy then slams Mahal into the structure's wall, and when going for it a second time, Jinder Mahal counters and begins climbing up, but the Viper gets up alongside and Randy eventually pulls the WWE Champion down. Orton suplexes Mahal into the wall and then he calls for a door, After getting stopped in his tracks, Randy has Mahal in a sleeper hold and Randy nearly makes it out but is stopped at the last second. Both men then stare down one another while observing the final door. After dropping Mahal with a snap DDT, Randy calls for the final door to open, but rather than escape, decides to nail an RKO, which Mahal counters with a high knee. Mahal sets up Orton for his finisher, but we get an RKO out of nowhere. Suddenly, the Singh brothers emerge from under the ring and they proceed to pull the WWE Champion out the door with 10 seconds to go until the door gets locked. Randy tries to make it to the door, but he runs out of time. Both Singh brothers try to get Jinder Mahal to his feet as the Viper starts to climb the inside structure. Mahal makes it towards the top of the outer structure just as Orton leaps across and gets alongside Mahal. The two go back and forth, and when Mahal drops down, the Singh brothers continue to halt Randy's bid for escape and they begin to beat the Viper down. After Orton gets the upper hand, he brings Mahal down again and then deals with the Singh brothers again. Randy turns a corner and out of nowhere, Jinder Mahal begins to attack Orton with a Singapore cane several times. Orton grabs another cane as Mahal begs him not to attack him, but Randy hits him with it. Orton then starts to climb again, but Samir Singh manages to slip through the cage and climbs up the outside to stop Randy again and applies a headlock. Randy manages to get free and then he throws punches on Samir as he takes a tumble through the announce table. Jinder Mahal then catches up to Orton and the two again go back and forth up the structure. Orton nails a DDT onto the floor as Randy looks around him with a stressed look on his face. Randy once again begins to climb up and Sunil Singh shows up and grabs Orton's leg, but he gets kicked away and down to the floor. Suddenly we hear Jinder Mahal's music play and out comes the Great Khali, who hadn't been seen in WWE for around 3 years at that point. Orton makes it to the top, but Khali begins to shake the structure and this makes Randy fall down the inside of the cage. Khali climbs up and grabs Orton by the neck just as Jinder Mahal starts to climb up. Mahal manages to get to the top while the Great Khali still has Randy Orton in his grasp. Finally, Jinder Mahal climbs down past Khali and he wins the match and retains the WWE title. And afterwards, the Great Khali celebrates with Jinder Mahal to end the pay-per-view. For me, this Punjabi Prison match was about as good as the No Mercy 2007 encounter, though this one did go on for a bit too long, I will admit, and they could have took off maybe 5-10 minutes of the bout. The ending of the match was really unnecessary, as the interference of the Singh brothers was fine, but for me, the Great Khali's appearance at the end didn't need to happen. And this was also a one-time appearance for Khali, as he would not appear again during Jinder Mahal's WWE Championship reign. But as said, this match was average and okay, like the No Mercy bout, though the interference at the end was a bit unnecessary. On the whole, the Punjabi Prison match is sadly a bout that just kept getting poor receptions every time it appeared. At least they didn't end up making it an annually event that would have ended up getting tarnished no matter what. I always say that any new and untested match concepts are possible, if they are done right of course. The first one was no doubt the weakest of the three matches. The No Mercy and the Battleground bouts were about okay, but they still couldn't make it a spectacle of a match. I know for sure there are people out there who actually like the Punjabi Prison, and I'm going to be perfectly honest, I'd rather choose the Punjabi Prison over the Kennel from Hell match from Unforgiven 1999. So there's that. While I doubt we'll ever witness the match make a return in WWE, I always have to go by the saying, never say never, and just leave it at that, and just have to wait and see. Thanks as always everyone for watching.